got a late spring going. The trees that just started to bloom, just started to sprout barely. I was in the swamps this afternoon hunting squirrels. Didn't see any squirrels, but anyway. We're fortunate to have with us as our guest Denise Lenko, who has been busily reviving the historic Azalea Trail in Lafayette, which used to be, I guess, in the 50s, right after the war. It was a very prominent event for Lafayette, the Azalea Trail, and I can remember Jefferson Boulevard, the center portion of the boulevard was all these giant azaleas, and it's just beautiful at this time of the year. So, Denise, thank you for being here. Share with us the history and what y'all hope to do about reviving and getting those azalea trails going again.
Well, thank you for having me today. I'm glad to be here. I'm passionate about Lafayette's beautiful landscape and our history. I used to do the Azalea Trail Run in the 1990s when the Jaycees promoted the trail. But in 1938, the mayor, along with the Lafayette Garden Club and the Chamber of Commerce, officially designated February 23rd as the official day of opening bloom season. Elmhurst Park Historic District, the ladies there used the azalea plants as a beautification project, and they literally planted azaleas all up and down the sidewalks in Elmhurst Park. But we know azaleas started long before 1938 in the Deep South. Camellias, azaleas, magnolias, all of our beautiful floral Mardi Gras has been here since the 1800s. So I'll take you back further than 1938 with a little history of how Lafayette got so beautiful. The SLI, our Industrial Institute, our university, had a program under Dr. Joel Lafayette Fletcher back in the early 1930s called the Farm Dorm Boys. It was a work and education program after the Depression. The boys lived in the Midwinter Fair building for a very small fee, but they had to work on the farm. And at that time, SLI had purchased the 180-acre Whittington farm for a very small price. Most of it was donated. And the boys worked there. They planted 5 acres of just camellias and azaleas. And it got too much, I guess, to take care of, and eventually they had a big auction, and they auctioned off all those plants. So we know those were spread around the city to beautify Lafayette. Then some more people, some early developers of our city that did a lot to beautify the city came into the play, and it was John Cameron Nickerson, Maurice Hyman, Mr. Eloy Girard, Dr. Edwin Stevens, and Henry Bendel. John Cameron Nickerson bought the Oakbourne Plantation. He was very fond of camellias and azaleas and grew those as well. He had a pecan orchard and gardens and beautiful plants. John Cameron Nickerson got Lafayette on the map across America as the city of azaleas, and we were known as that for years in the early 1900s, 1930s and 40s. Maurice Hyman did a lot for Lafayette too. He had a 150-acre nursery where the oil center is, and he was the developer of the oil center. He put in a lot of the azaleas up and down Coolidge Boulevard. It became known as the $1 Million Road on the Gold Coast of the South. Mr. Girard owned Cafe Vermilionville, that location, that plantation, and he also had a huge nursery. And back in those days, there wasn't a big commercial nursery. They grew and propagated a lot here. And that's how the trail, I think, got started, was these people did so much, and as the city grew, the trail grew. So it started around Elmhurst Park and in Sterling Grove, and it spread on to the beautiful historic grounds we have. Dr. Stevens got the live oaks with John Cameron Nickerson. They both got the live oaks planted around the university, the century oaks. So they did a lot to beautify Lafayette.
When they planted oaks, did they also plant azaleas in that area around the university?
They did. So if you go into the archives at the Dupre Library and the Louisiana Digital Library, you can see some of the pictures of the former grounds of our university. Beautiful, huge Formosa azaleas, 13 and 14 feet or bigger, on the grounds of the President's House, Morton Hall, and those old buildings.
Yeah.
Beautiful. There are lots of different groups that have promoted the Azalea Trail over the years. The Garden Club started in the early 1930s with the Chamber and the Mayor's Office, and Lafayette Travel has done a lot to promote the Azalea Trail. The J.C.'s did a lot for 2 or 3 decades. They helped put on the Azalea pageant with the university and pick a queen, and they had the Azalea Trail run. The Camellia Society also promoted the camellias and azaleas and had a pageant in Lafayette. And then in 2014, Scenic Lafayette came on board, and they took the Azalea Trail as an inaugural project to revitalize it. And we've done a lot the last 8 or 9 years. We've planted over 1,500 azaleas across the trail and on and off the trail. Our university is a big partner. They have over 400 azaleas on campus. The Keep Lafayette Beautiful has helped promote the trail, our university, and the Azalea Society of America. So this year we've been working hard on bringing the Azalea Society of America's convention to Lafayette for the first time. I'm a member of the Louisiana chapter, and I'm the advertising manager for the National Azalea magazine. So it's going to be March 10th through 13th. We're having the Azalea Convention here in Lafayette. We'll be touring them through town on Friday and making a few stops at the most beautiful places in town.
And they're from all throughout the country or from the South? The members are mostly southern states, I would think.
There's a lot from the South, but there's also the northern chapters in Virginia. The rhododendrons are real common in the mountains, and that's the parent plant of the azalea. So
Wow.
the American Rhododendron Society also does a lot to promote azaleas, and then our Azalea Society of America partners with them. So we do have them coming from all over the country. The Azalea Society and the American Rhododendron Society will have a joint conference next year.
And is that open for the public to attend?
You have to become a member of the society. It's just $30 a year, and then
Mhm.
you can pay the fee and attend.
And where's the location and so forth?
Next year, it's going to be,
No, this year.
this year, the registration has closed because it's in 2 weeks,
Mhm.
but it's going to be here in Lafayette, the Holiday Inn North. You can see all the information about the convention and the program on azaleas.org and azaleatrail.org.
Oh, great. Well, that's important for Lafayette that those folks from other parts of the country here to see, how we've done with azaleas over the decades. And it's an enduring plant. I don't know, some of these trees have a life expectancy, but I know we've had azaleas in our yard that we planted over 40 years ago, and they're doing quite well. So what's the life expectancy of
I
an azalea?
think they can live a very long time. The ones on some of the major boulevards in town are over 50 years old.
Mhm.
So the formosas, the lavender southern indica formosa, this flower here, is native to the Deep South. And this became so prevalent in Lafayette that the mayor designated it as our official flower.
And that's the same as we have.
Yes, yes. So the National Azalean Journal, put out by the Azalea Society of America, has been featuring Lafayette well the last year. I've been writing articles and sending in photography for the magazine. So we are featured here on the cover as Mouton Gardens, Les Jardins de Mouton. That's a historic area on the trail. It's a showcase of our city flowers.
Mhm.
And then most recent, our winter issue, this is the Sunday House at the Lafayette Museum. This is going to be one of the stops on the tours for the convention this year. We also are partnering the Azalea Trail now with Preservation Alliance of Lafayette. It's our historic properties group, and this is a new issue we came out with in December of last year of the Lafayette Historic Register. Our city's done a wonderful job of keeping this up to date, and the Azalea Trail is now, for the first time, part of the register. We have the Azalea Trail map and a little narrative in the book, so we're proud of this. I was passionate about beautifying the grounds with some of these historic properties. About 5 years ago, I noticed some of them didn't have azaleas anymore. So we went out and planted azaleas at the Barranco School, Lafayette Middle, the French House, the Soye, Whittington, several historic grounds to bring that beauty back to those homes and schools.
I know people listening, they can appreciate the azaleas. You have any directions on, one, where to get the plants, and two, what's the ideal areas to spot to plant them? Can they go in the shade? Do they need to be in the sun to get them going? Do you need to water them once a day? What it takes to get an azalea going and prospering? Is there fertilizer that you can put to them to enhance their
A lot of good questions. There are a lot of types of azaleas. When it comes to azaleas, it's amazing. So I'll first say the Azaleas Society of America, their website is extensive. You can read all about the types of azaleas, how to care, how to plant. It's azaleas.org. There are two major categories of the evergreen and the deciduous. So the deciduous drop their leaves in the fall and they're beautiful. The evergreen are what we see a lot here in Lafayette on our azalea trail. They're very easy to grow. They do need some sunlight to help them bloom. Azalea means dry because they don't like their feet wet. So you want to make sure when you do plant them, they have good drainage. Springtime is a great time to fertilize after they've bloomed. We also recommend if you want to selectively prune them at that time, that's a good time to prune them. But the azalea planting and care, I would like to just refer everyone to azaleas.org or the LSU Ag Center. There's a lot of information on the planting and care of azaleas.
We hear a lot about the wild azalea trail in Coxsackie. Are those azaleas wild, similar to the azaleas we have here?
No, those are the deciduous. They are beautiful. They kind of look like a big honeysuckle, and they're wild. They're very pretty. They're different. So talking about these,
And they would be blooming now with,
they will bloom in the spring, March to April. Maybe they're a little further north. Coxsackie might be late March. We planted over 150 of the deciduous at Moncus Park this past year. Buddy Lee, the propagator and inventor of the Encore azaleas, donated them to us. So they're in the ravine area by the bridge. They should be beautiful.
well, there was a bunch of azaleas in there because there was a home back in that ravine, near the ravine.
They
So
still
there was
have,
the azaleas were
Yeah.
there.
they still have azaleas there.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's good that they have preserved them. So now, as far as driving the Azalea Trail, the maps are available, and is there an official start?
Right. So the map is available at the Visitor Center with our brochures. At the Visitor Center and the Gateway are also on the website, azaleatrail.org. And it's also on Google. We have listed the Azalea Trail on Google Maps, and we get a lot of people looking at Lafayette on the Google Maps. So yes, it is available there.
So what, with the convention, what is the step forward? What are some of the goals that the Azalea Society is pursuing? Are they trying to bring it to other communities and so forth?
Yes, they have the convention somewhere close to a chapter every year. It's in very different places. Sometimes it's in Virginia. They're going to have it in Washington eventually, but the next couple of few years it'll be in the South, here in Arkansas, and Georgia, Alabama. So this year we are going to be touring them all through Lafayette with stops at the Lafayette Museum, the Girard Park Pond, in Freetown, Puerto Rico at the Good Hope Hall. We will be touring them through the garden districts of Mouton Gardens, Greenbrier, Bendale Gardens, and we will also take them to the Lafayette Visitor Center, which has a lot of azaleas there.
Yes.
The Saturday on the tours, we take them out to Jefferson Island and Avery Island. It's going to be a beautiful trip. We're going to see a lot of the deep south best gardens are down there.
Jefferson Island has beautiful azaleas. Yep. It's amazing, both Jefferson and Avery Island, they have maintained their, uh, I guess, the diversity of plant life. I mean, they've raised bamboo, they've raised all kinds of plants there. And I know Jefferson Island, they work with propagating bananas that mature in 9 months instead of 14 months, trying to get a commercial banana growing that would do well here. So of course, and they run an enormous nursery operation, and I was just wondering, the source, if they'll do the local nurseries carry azaleas?
The local nurseries carry azaleas. All Seasons is our big supplier, but there are others. Shastar Brothers also carries a few, and Lestrap's right north of Lafayette on I-49, Gerard's, and yes, they
And
do.
I guess the area up near Alexandria must have, those nurseries must propagate azaleas also.
Sure. So with the convention, they do plant sales, so we will be having azaleas, all kinds of azalea varieties come in for the people who are attending the convention to buy azaleas. I'd like to talk a little bit about Scenic Lafayette again. They did a lot of work to get the Azalea Trail revitalized, and because of their efforts in 2016, the Azalea Society of America designated Lafayette as an official azalea city. So we
Wow.
were certified by the ASA. We are promoting the history of Lafayette with the Preservation Alliance, and I want to talk a little bit about that.
Sure.
Preservation Alliance promotes strong historic preservation values. It serves as an advocate for preservation, and it promotes the culture and history of our city. So with that being said, the history of the trail is rich because we promote more than just the flower. We promote everything that's up and around the trail. We promote it year-round. The website that we have shows the beauty of it year-round, from camellias to the southern magnolias. So the garden districts that were developed, Les Jardins de Mouton, was a beautiful place, and we've got the video of how it looked years ago on our website. Henry Bendel and Bendel Gardens, that development was Walnut Grove. He purchased Walnut Grove, and he developed a beautiful place there with his Camellia Lodge. He had so many azaleas and magnolias. He planted a whole row of magnolias on Marguerite Boulevard, and we call that Magnolia Row. He had planned on building a nice, beautiful home on the river at the end of that street. But it's interesting to know that Bendel Gardens, when they started to develop it as a subdivision and neighborhood, there were so many azaleas there that they ended up having to transplant some. And one of the developers from Houston that worked on that development transplanted almost 400 azaleas from Bendel Gardens to the River Oaks, Bayou Bend area in Houston. So
Wow.
Lafayette's azaleas helped Houston get their start.
Wow. Wow.
And that is in Miss Jeanette Parker's new book that came out. She's a resident in Bendel Gardens, and she just came out with this beautiful book about Bendel Gardens, a historic treasure. It is a wonderful read, great history of Bendel Gardens, and from the purchase of the property by Henry, and prior to that, how it was as Walnut Grove. So it's a really great book. It's for sale at the Champagnes Market and the Kitchenery.
When was that home built? I know it's listed, it was in the 30s?
1930s or 40s. I want to say 40s.
Mhm.
I want to say 1940s. And the Historic Register book is for sale in several stores around town. It's on our website for Preservation Alliance, preservinglafayette.org. It's for sale like at Sans Souci Art Gallery downtown, Beausoleil Art Books, the Vermilionville Gift Shop, the Cathedral Gift Shop, Acadian Village, Pieces of Eight, the Hilliard Museum Gift Shop. We have it in several of the stores to buy. I
Yeah,
love
it gives a
reading
brief
these.
history of some of the older homes and the churches,
Yes.
the downtown Methodist Church, the cathedral. I don't know if they put St. Genevieve's in it, but some of the older churches are.
Right, so I feel like it's my generation's turn to get more of the central properties in the book. So I'm working on that. I've been advocating with several locations to nominate and get them into our register. For example, the A. Hazestown Art Center at the Hilliard and several properties on the campus. Some more of the churches in town, Our Lady of Fatima, the Presbyterian, and St. Genevieve. Would love to see all of these in the historic register. And in the back are maps. You can do self-guided walking tours. We also have the Boleto Discovery app, which is on our website or on Boleto Discovery. You can do a few of the historic district walking tours in French or English. So I'm hoping we get that updated this year to include Elmhurst Park Historic District and the Oil Center Historic District as well.
You had mentioned Mr. Nickerson. He was born in Lake Simcoe, Canada. And the street that went through his property, he managed to rename it Simcoe.
Simcoe.
Simcoe, and you can Google Lake Simcoe to tell you.
And John Cameron Street was also named after him too. Cameron is his middle name.
Yes, wow. I remember him well. He struggled to keep the pecan orchard going, and the pecan orchard never produced pecans. But he manicured it and fertilized it and worked with LSU. They put a chemical, they put an axe hack, up 3 or 4 feet, and they put nutrients into the trees. I can remember doing that all with Mr. Nixon, trying to get these big orchards to produce pecans. It never did produce pecans.
Wow, that's interesting. In the 1950s, the Chamber of Commerce developed an Evangeline Trail on Highway 90 and the old Spanish Trail throughout the Evangeline country. We have a copy of that brochure on our website. It's very interesting. So we encourage folks from the surrounding communities to share pictures of their azalea bloom season on our Facebook for the Azalea Trail.
I know Carencro has beautiful azaleas for sure, and so does Opelousas.
And those were 2 areas that were on the Evangeline Trail.
Wow, they were.
Yes. So one of the revitalization projects we did was the Coolidge Boulevard project a few years ago. We revitalized that boulevard, and we got an Atchafalaya National Heritage Grant from them, and I'm so grateful. And we got a couple more smaller grants from the Atchafalaya Heritage. So Oil Center's looking good.
And when you look at economic development of any community, the first thing they say, clean it up and beautify it. And I can't think of any better way to beautify the community than with the azaleas.
Yes. So we promote all of our beautiful southern flowers, the camellias, the magnolias, roses, crepe myrtles, red buds, everything. It's not just about the azalea, but they are a flower power bush. When they bloom, it's just prolific. It's so pretty.
And they last about a month, I guess.
They last a few weeks, and the ones that are in the shade even last, that have part shade, last even longer. So 2021 was a record year. We had that last freeze on around February 14th, and it was the most beautiful spring last year. We had a lot of pretty flowers. I think this year will be just as pretty. Second week in March, I think that we will see a lot of beautiful flowers.
Yes, it's just, live oak trees, cypress trees, azaleas, and camellias. That's the old South. And that's the beauty of the gardens in our southern communities.
So some of my work for the Azalean Journal is to feature ads, and I sell ads to landscape nurseries and garden attractions. But I'm really focusing on really getting a lot of southern gardens in the magazine. So we have Bellingrath Gardens that's going to be coming up soon. That's in Mobile. They're going to be doing an article on them. But the last 4 or 5 issues, we've really had a lot of great articles on Lafayette, Louisiana, with beautiful pictures of our city. So I'm proud of that, and it's brought about a lot of fruit. we see a lot of revitalization happening other than just the azaleas. People are fixing up their yards, cleaning up their houses. People are proud and glad to be a part of the Azalea Trail.
And I guess with it, there's a big effort to maintain, litter control, I mean, who wants to, look at azaleas and see piles of litter under it along the street? So, taking pride on our community is very much an important aspect that we, do as much as we can to discourage litter and picking it up.
I
Take
agree.
a walk, bring a little bag with you, and pick up a few beer cans or whatever and beautify it. And the human eye is really something. If you got a 5-acre parking lot and there's one pop can in the middle of it, that's where your eye will go.
I agree.
Yeah,
So
so-
the city has a wonderful program called Embrace Your Space, and I love it. It encourages people to get out and pick up litter around their businesses or their neighborhood streets and so forth. And it also, I think people can help beautify the entrance to their neighborhoods. So we have a couple of neighborhoods that are doing just that. The old 1920s Arbolata subdivision on Johnson Street. We've got some great participation there with the neighbors, and some of those neighbors have been there for years, and they actually planted the azaleas at the entrance. But they've been cleaning up that beautiful facade. They've done a great job. And now Mouton Gardens, the neighbors there have taken a sincere interest of doing work there. They've replaced the beautiful benches, and they're going to
Yeah,
be
they
doing
have-
some more grounds work.
They have a beautiful azaleas around that mall.
It's beautiful.
Real pretty.
It is. So that's this picture here. That was on the cover of the Azalea a couple of years ago.
Oh, wow.
Mouton Gardens.
That's gorgeous, yeah.
Yes. That was taken by one of
That
the
kind of a little mini
residents.
park, and the neighbors have
It's
really
beautiful.
done a bunch of planting. They plant citrus trees, they planted all kinds of trees now.
So Keep Lafayette Beautiful, we've been doing some revitalization work at Veterans Park, our Pontiac Point, by Jefferson Boulevard, and another group, Ms. Deborah Young's group, has been doing a lot there for
I
several
think
years.
it's the American Legion Park.
Yeah, so we're working on doing some revitalization there. We've done some cleanups, and it's looking good.
Beautiful
Another-
oak trees there.
Another project that I'm on is to revitalize the historic fluted lampposts that are along the boulevards. I grew up in Whittington Park, and they were gas lit when they were first when I was
Really?
young, and they were beautiful. And then eventually in the 80s, the city upgraded to electric, and now they've upgraded to LED. And they really needed to be repainted. So I recently got the Cox Heroes Regional Award, and I dedicated those funds to revitalize the lamppost in Whittington Park. And I'm hoping to start a
Where is
campaign.
Whittington Park, Denise?
It's off of Johnson Street.
Oh, yes, yeah.
By Our Lady of Fatima Church.
Yes, yes.
So a lot of great history with the Dwight Andrews families. I wanted to give credit to Dwight Andrews Sr., hoping we'll get his final house in the register this year as well. He did a lot to develop beautiful neighborhoods in Lafayette. He got these beautiful lampposts from across the country and had them installed in his neighborhoods. So we'll be doing that in Whittington Park this year, and that'll dress up the trail and keep things looking good. So I'm hoping this year to start a campaign to do the rest of the old lampposts along the boulevards.
Are there urban grants to do these type of beautification and plants? Is that available?
It's hard for me to find grants for plants. So if anybody has any suggestions, that'd be great. And we love donations. If anybody wants to make a donation, you can donate it to Preservation Alliance of Lafayette. But I do get promotional grants. For the Coolidge Boulevard project, I had to go out and we fundraised with the All Center Association. So that was close to a $50,000 project. We put in irrigation and we raised the money to do it. But I do have some grants I'm looking at for this year with Louisiana Travel. There's an attractions grant. There's also some funding with some other opportunities. But for plants themselves, I have a hard time finding funding for plants.
Wow, yeah. Are they, like, can you start an azalea from a cutting?
You can, and so I tried it myself. I've got several in the backyard. I wanted to see if I could do it, and it's very easy to take cuttings in the spring or fall, but I did it
You
most
know
of
what
my
color it is right
spring.
now.
Yes. So I have a lot of little azalea plants growing in my backyard in little pots right now, and it's very easy to do.
You make a cutting?
You take a cutting and you remove the bottom leaves and you put it in some fertile potting soil. I used a little bit of powdered root stimulator on them, and the instructions on how to do this are on the LSU Ag website or the Azalea Society website, azaleas.org. You can learn how to propagate your own. Another interesting.
And they can graft them,
Yes.
because I've seen trees with white. In fact, I have a tree with half white and half of the pink. And I know that has to be somewhat grafted, the white with the pink.
You can read about how to do that on those two websites. I haven't tried grafting yet. But another interesting function of the Azalea Society and the American Rhododendron Society is they have seed banks. Horticulture is so interesting. They have seed banks and they encourage people to send up seeds from your azaleas. So I had never done that, and last year for the first time in May, I took a lot of seeds off azalea bushes here in town.
What
and
do the
sent
seeds
them
look
up
like?
to the Azalea Society.
What do the
seed bank.
seeds look like?
After the flower fades and the petals of the flower shed off of the stem, it leaves a seed. There's a seed there.
Wow.
And I didn't ever realize that, and so last May I was able to collect a lot of seeds off of different varieties and send them up to the seed bank. The American Rhododendron Society right now is really looking for more seeds for the deciduous azaleas, the
Wow.
natives. So if anybody has those, they have a seed bank. And I find that very interesting. They work this hard to keep these azalea plants going.
I have azaleas in my yard. It blooms frequently.
An ever-blooming azalea. So
Yeah.
again, I wish I knew everything off the top of my mind,
But it blooms
there are different
4 or
categories.
5 times a year.
There's ever-blooming, there are encores, there's many different varieties of azaleas. And so this year we've been promoting a lot of the encores because they bloom, they have a big flower power bloom in fall and spring, and then they bloom a little bit in the summer as well. So it gives you a lot of enjoyment throughout the year. And the
Wow.
encores is a smaller bush, like 3 to 4 feet. So they're very nice for flower beds. The large lavender formosas and the Gigi Gerbing and those southern favorites that we have here, those tend to get very large, 10
Yeah.
to 12 feet.
And the ones that's ever blooming, it's a small plant. It's only like 3 or 4 feet tall. But it blooms 4 or 5 times a year.
Yes.
So
that-
it's
I
so
want-
important to the community that, you know, this beautification takes place, and you can, you know, I think especially frequently travel streets that, you know, don't have these homeowners ought to be thinking of adding that to their landscaping plan. And I don't know, like the new areas like River Ranch and all that, how extensive they are pursuing azaleas in their subdivisions.
Yeah, would be interesting to know. Lafayette Travel's done a great job in promoting the Azalea Trail over the years, and there's a lot of information on the website, LafayetteTravel.com. They have us in their Alon's travel guides. This year, with the Festivals of Acadian moving up into March, Trail has moved their Tour de Atacapa run up to March as well. It'll be March 20th, and it'll be an Azalea Trail run, so we're excited about that.
Wow.
We'll be using these stop signs we have at the water stops. So we partnered, Preservation Alliance and the Azalea Trail partnered with Trail this year to do an Azalea Trail run on March 20th. And they're looking for volunteers to man the water stops and to direct the traffic. So that's exciting.
That's a
Another way
5K
to
run?
enjoy 5 and 10K.
Wow. Okay. Great. So where would you like to see the community 5 years from now? You'll in any way monitor the you know, how extensive azalea are, and then with a goal to enhance and promote and improve it, and
This year, we're continually revitalizing, which means also excavating old dead azaleas. So the city we're gonna be working together this year to remove some old dead azaleas on the boulevards and replant again in the fall. I had a vision to possibly do the Grand Boulevard of azaleas and put this beauty on the bigger boulevards around town. So I don't know.
We have very few boulevards, and
Yeah,
in Jefferson Boulevard from the railroad track to Pontiac Point was all azaleas. And I guess it was about 10 feet wide or 12 foot wide.
wow.
And it's a shame that, we don't think of replacing it.
Yeah, so I planted Cajun Dome. Me and a few people planted Cajun Dome about 3 years ago with all the red formosas to create a Raging Cajun district for the trail. It actually helps connect the garden districts. So up and down Congress and Cajun Dome, there's 50 red azaleas that we put in on Cajun Dome Boulevard.
Wow.
But yeah, we would love to see it spread around the city onto the boulevards around town, like down Camellia possibly, and La Rue France, and out by Turlings. That would be beautiful to put azaleas on the boulevards.
We've planted a bunch of oak trees, and that would be really nice to, in the space between it. Oak trees are usually about 100, 150 feet apart, so there'd be an opportunity
Beautiful.
between those two.
Yes, and they have the space for these large formosas, and you don't need to cut them. That's what's so pretty.
Yeah,
You could put those on a boulevard,
And
a
they
large
kinda take care of
boulevard, and they would
themselves.
do well.
yeah.
They're very hardy. They're
They survive the
evergreen.
frost
They
and
survive
everything
the
else.
freeze and the frost really well.
How far
So,
north do azaleas grow?
The formosas go far up into probably the southern Carolinas, and then you get up there in the mountains. The more common are the rhododendrons.
Mhm.
The rhododendrons are beautiful, and they do a lot to manage and maintain those historic bushes in the mountains.
But they
don't-
have them in Virginia, I guess, close to the coast.
Yes, they have them in Virginia.
Yeah.
They are beautiful.
Because the coastal Carolinas, the coastal Georgia, that's very, of course, you can't think of the masters. They usually have the masters during the azalea bloom.
Yes,
And
that's a
I guess that's
beautiful,
the end of March. That should be coming up.
yeah, that was created, that golf course was developed on the grounds of a nursery.
Really?
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, they
Fantastic.
maintained the azaleas. They're just beautiful up there.
So I want to encourage everybody that's interested in azaleas to become a member of the Azalea Society of America. You can join online at azaleas.org. You get to enjoy this wonderful journal that comes out every quarter. It has wonderful articles on different gardens and how to care for azaleas, legacy projects. Just a wonderful journal, very scientific and interesting, and also promotes garden attractions around the country. The Azalea Society, they promote understanding and skills in classification, hybridization, propagation, and culture of azaleas among interested people. They serve as a clearinghouse of information. They contribute to scientific advance in the area of horticulture. They encourage the introduction of new species and hybrids and the greater use of superior cultivators, and increase the bonds of fellowship among those who grow and appreciate azaleas.
The azaleas exist in other countries like South America, in Brazil, or any of those parts of the world?
I know they originally came from Asia. That's a good question, but I know there's a lot in Asia. That's where
So they're not native here.
there are some that have become native. This southern indica lavender is native to the Deep South.
Wow.
There are some that are native to our area, but there are many that are not, but they've been brought here years ago. Some believe by
Like the whites.
missionaries and also developers. The white, the Gigi Gerbing, there's several different whites. The Gigi Gerbing is most common down here, and the George Tabor is very common. That's the beautiful light pink one. Miss Jeanette used it on the back of her book.
Oh, yes. And I have some of those too.
Beautiful plant.
Well, we call this. You on there? Can we help you?
Yes, I'm really interested in all your azalea information, Denise. This is Sarah, and I wanted to say something about pruning azaleas. One of the biggest things that pulls back on our azaleas is people will prune them all throughout the year, and they cut them in balls and all of that type. You should never prune an azalea until after it's bloomed. And that's the most important thing that anybody could do. And you can prune them way, way, way back. If it's getting too big for you, or if they're getting scrawny and shaggy looking, you just prune them way back and they come back the next year and they're beautiful. So I just wanted to pass that along.
I'm glad you called in.
Well, that's great. It's great to know because people have a tendency, it's getting too big. You can't see my house anymore, so I'm going to cut it down when really they could just prune it back and,
Right.
you know,
I'm glad you called that in because we find a lot of people are hedging in August and they're cutting off the bloom. So just like camellias, azaleas start growing their buds late summer for the following spring. So don't ever hedge your azaleas late summer because you're cutting off a lot of your buds. If you're going to prune or
Right after
trim,
they bloom.
do it before June.
yeah.
Do it before June 1st.
Of
Thank
course,
you, Sarah.
the camellias, you know, they're a magnificent plant and they bloom forever. I mean, they start blooming, I guess, in November, and they're still beautiful now.
So this was a dream of mine, was to promote Lafayette's historic beauty with the Azalea Trail. So these are the posters we'll be putting out this spring at the Visitor Center. And you can see it has the QR codes. People can scan and go to the website and do the walking tours. And it also takes us to our Azalea Trail site, but it shows a lot of the historic properties on the Azalea Trail in Lafayette.
Wow.
So before I
So-
launched the website several years ago, I studied what Mobile, Alabama was doing and the cherry blossoms in Washington. I loved what they did on their website. The Cherry Blossom Festival is really doing a lot of different things now.
Mobile is at Government Boulevard, I think, is the big azalea run in Mobile.
They
It's
have
beautiful.
a very big azalea run every year, yes, so.
I think, of course, azaleas all over Florida too, especially North Florida.
North Florida, they don't do well in the south. I think the bugs get them.
Wow.
I don't see very many in the deep south of Florida.
But you sure see them all over Georgia.
Yes.
Macon is just
Georgia.
gorgeous. Macon has these big boulevards,
Mhm.
and 100-foot boulevards, kind of like the Mouton Gardens, but they're all over town.
Wow.
And azaleas throughout. So Macon wasn't burned down by the Yankees, so you know, it survived. They burned Atlanta to the ground.
So another interesting thing I wanted to point out too is Lafayette's Azalea Trail is like a parade of history, parade of historical architecture. Driving on the trail, you'll see everything from, we have several historic districts. You'll see French Creole, Acadian architecture, colonial, bungalow, Mediterranean, Tudor, Queen Anne, Victorian style, and even collegiate schools and Romanesque style architecture in between churches, schools, and homes.
I know Grand Coteau has beautiful azaleas. That
They do.
beautiful, gorgeous.
And they were part of the Evangeline Trail years ago.
Really?
Yes.
Wow. So the Evangeline Trail, where did it start and where did it end?
It was a lot of Highway 90. It's on our website. You can see the brochure with the map.
Franklin, I guess, was included.
Would you like to show the slideshow of pictures that I brought? Okay. Okay.
You wanna see that?
Yeah, it's,
This is,
In the University District down St. Mary's, that's a showcase of encores. They've done a great job of maintaining their campus, and it's just beautiful. The encores bloom there in the spring and fall.
what are the encores?
The encores bloom 2 times a year, a whole lot, and then they also bloom in the summer a little. So you can see those blooming under the oak trees on St. Mary Boulevard on the campus
yes,
right now.
okay. And they do well um, in the summer, they bloom in the summer,
A little bit,
A little bit.
yes.
in the
They do
fall.
A little bit. Fall, they bloom a lot in the fall and the spring.
Wow. So it's possible to plant azaleas that will be blooming quite a bit more than the traditional azaleas that bloom mainly in
Formosas.
March.
Right. Yes.
And I guess, the end of March, the iris is coming out. That's a special flower for Louisiana. And, we have areas that have just an enormous abundance of irises, including Lake Foss Point and the area around Burners Point. And, towards the end of March when they're blooming is really something to see.
Yeah.
If you go by boat, you can see irises across the marsh all the way to the horizon.
Oh, wow.
Thousands
But it's
of them.
beautiful.
And they have an iris in Lake Foss Point that's purple. It's wine purple. And it's,
We have some of those at the visitor center. Did you know around the lake at the visitor center and the gateway?
these are wild,
We have several varieties
Wow, okay.
of irises at our
This-
visitor center.
And of
The
course,
visitor center is an interesting place. That was developed over about 25 years ago.
I remember when it
And
was.
it's beautiful. They've got Japanese magnolias, shishi camellias, a
Mhm.
lot of cypress, a lot of azaleas. We planted 25 azaleas around the pond.
Yeah, it was something to get the pond to hold water.
Yeah, it's really pretty. Another place that's been revitalized is our alumni center on the campus. They've done a great job of revitalizing the grounds there. They're beautiful historic camellia gardens in there with azaleas. So that's a pretty place on the campus.
And of course, the campus has azaleas all over it, I guess Gerard Park has some, I don't know.
We planted 25 around the pond at Gerard
At
Park
Gerard Park,
as well.
great.
So people could get down and walk among the flowers and take pictures and enjoy them. Yes. And then in 2000 and, I think 2018, the mayor gave a proclamation for March 18th to be our official Historic Azalea Trail Day. So March 18th is our official.
And what day of the week is that this March?
This March, I would have to see a calendar.
Yeah.
But usually by March 18th, that's usually at the peak or the getting close to the end of the bloom season, depending on the weather. I think this year will be beautiful. I think second week of March should be really pretty.
When your convention arrives, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
hopefully.
Well, it's great that you all have, I guess, that's a very competitive thing about where the convention is held, so.
Yes, so when they asked, we had offered to have the convention here, and tentatively we were gonna have it in 2024. And then I got a call year before last, and they haven't met in 2 years, so this is the first year they're all gathering together again. And they called me and I said, sure, we'll have it. They needed someone to have it for 2022, so we've been working hard this past year. And we have 78 to 80 people coming from across the
Wow.
country. So we're excited to treat them, and we'll be having some great food and tours, and we have an add-on day at Vermilionville. We beautified Vermilionville's entrance with azaleas a few years back, and that's going to be an add-on day for them to come on Sunday and go experience the Folklife Park and the music at Vermilionville.
Oh, fantastic. I guess by the Vermilion District, they've encouraged planting. I know that there's another group that want to restore the Vermilion, and planting is a big part of that, In fact, they did a big tree planting, but it'd be good to go beyond trees and include in the tree planting some azaleas also.
I agree. We even donated some pine trees to Vermilionville when we planted. They didn't have any pines on the property. And we know that pine straw is great mulch for azaleas, so we donated a few longleaf pines so they could use it as mulch and for the Native American
They're beautiful
basket
trees.
weaving,
Boy,
so they would have longleaf pine.
They're slow growing.
Yeah.
I've got a couple of them, and they're like 7, 8 years old, and they might have gotten 20 feet tall. But an oak tree that's 8 or 10 years old, it'll be 30, 40 feet tall, you know. But it's a beautiful tree, that beautiful tree. And it was a beautiful forest, you know. The longleaf pine forest was kind of, you might have had 30, 40 trees per acre, and the rest was just fields like prairie. And
Beautiful.
beautiful and fabulous wood, slow growing, strong, you know, and but as they cut it down, you could plant loblolly or something like that and have 500 trees per acre,
Wow.
you know, and it was something that you could cut them in 7 or 8 years. So loblolly, you mean the longleaf pine would take 30, 40 years to mature, and people thought, oh, it's too long. It's like we didn't plant cypress because it took too long, but
You have to start somewhere.
as you're cutting it, I mean, we cut cypress for 50 or 60 years. Had we been planting it as we cutting it, we still have a big cypress lumber industry.
Mhm.
You know, and that's what it takes, that's
keep
how long it takes
planting.
to grow trees up north. Timber trees take 30, 40 years,
That's
but
right.
as they cut, they
That's
plant.
right.
You know.
And the azaleas that we see today and enjoy, these large ones are over 30 years old easily, 30 and 40 and 50 years old.
Yeah,
So it
I
takes
bet
years
there's
to get that
azaleas in
big.
Lafayette that's 100 years old.
I think so too. We have the President Clays, which are the first to bloom on St. Mary Boulevard. They probably are 70 years old.
Wow.
They're very big, they're beautiful. So that's another initiative, is to try to clean out some of these old bushes, take the dead branches out of the inside to give them more oxygen, so we're hoping to do that this year.
And every
after
now
the
and then you
convention.
have all kinds of chicken trees and everything will grow in your azaleas, so. And that's gonna hurt the azaleas, so.
Right,
That's
so
the
it's
thing,
good
is
to
cut
keep them
those
clean of
things, take-
vines and
yeah.
wild trees
Yeah,
and,
keep the vines out of them.
yes.
Yeah.
And when they get big and old, sometimes the limbs there might be some dead ones inside. It's good to pull the rotten, dead limbs out. It actually gives the plant more oxygen. Yeah.
So this is a real asset to the community, getting back to economic development and beautification is the top of the list to improve a community. You know, you have visitors come and they see beautiful trees and plantings and a community caring for the natural world around, keeping the town beautiful with trees and azaleas and camellias and so forth. That's so important to give a good first impression of our community, a caring community.
Yes, and our soil and climate is so wonderful. You can plant just about anything in the South. We have rich acidic soil and subtropic climate, so we really
My
can
son's
grow so many
yeah,
different
my son's in
plants.
the landscaping business, and he worked a bunch in Wichita, Kansas. And he said they'd plant plants, and you had about 50% survival,
Wow.
you know, in 2 years. And here in Lafayette, he says 99.9, everything you plant is gonna
gonna
survive and grow and do well, so.
Yeah, so there's a lot of evergreen plants you can plant, other than azaleas. It'd be hydrangeas.
Well, pine
and
trees.
Camellias. I mean, you can plant a lot of
Camellias,
beautiful flowering plants.
Native.
And native, a lot of native, beautiful native.
Wax
plants.
myrtle is a beautiful evergreen, and it's a great hedge. But it's also a wild plant that you use for fixing up duck blinds, and deer hunters use it. And of course, the beans that come off of it, they would put that in boiling water and that's the wax myrtle. That's where the Cajuns made their candles from.
Interesting.
But it's a beautiful plant, and it's very much a native plant. So we kind of at the end of our tour. We thank you so much, Denise, for being here and sharing with us, you know, all your information about azalea, a real treasure to our community. And congratulations on getting the Azalea Society to be meeting here in Lafayette 2 weeks from now.
Thank you for having me. I
And I
enjoyed
know
it.
you had some play in getting them here.
Thank you very much.
That's always a help to the community, to bring people with their ideas and their contacts, bringing information how they succeeded in their communities, and that those successes can be copied. So meetings are super important, to enhance your own efforts to bring the successes and the failures which we learn from. So important that's being brought to here. So congratulations.
Thank
You for doing that.
Thank you.
All right, the days are gonna be at their peak, I guess, a week or two from now. And behind it, I guess we're gonna have irises, that's more in the wild. That's another beautiful plant in our area, so again, Denise, thank you. Thank you so
Thank
much
you.
for being here and sharing all your information about beautification in Lafayette.
So
And
look
I
for,
can
look for
take
these
this
azalea street signs. Look for those when you're traveling on the trail.
super, and it really goes all over town, doesn't it?
Yes.
How many miles is it?
25 miles. long.
25 miles, so it take about, I guess, a couple hours to do it, right?
Less than an hour.
And
Less
you could,
than an hour.
real nice bike ride, right?
Yes.
The right bicycle ride, great, because probably in the areas that is bike friendly. So again, thank you. We're off.